Hi, I'm Wayne Caddy. I teach at the School of Artisan Food. I've been baking for 27 years. I represented Team GB in the Coupe du Monde and the Masters de la Boulangerie too. I'm going to share with you some top baking techniques and recipes to take your baking to the next level. A pain de campagne is a French country bread. A Poolish is flour, water and a real small amount of yeast, equal amounts of flour to water. Mixing Poolish is very simple. You don't need a mixer, it's just your hands, okay? So we take the water and gently tip it into the bowl. The water, incidentally, is 18 to 22 degrees, which is round about room temperature. Then we take the fresh yeast, 1 gram of fresh yeast, and we've got 2 litres of water in this recipe. And all we're going to do is just agitate the water and the yeast together so that it disperses through. Then we're going to take our flour and we're gently going to pour the flour in. And as this flour's tipping in, with your other hand, just start stirring round. It's very easy to mix through. Okay, so I'm going to gradually keep adding my flour, and my fingers in the bowl are together, so my fingers aren't open, and I'm just doing a sort of circular motion in the centre of the Poolish until I see no visible flour lumps. So literally, that is it. So I'm scraping my hand off, which has acted as a paddle. It's always kept the fingers together. You can see it's a very soft dough, and literally requires maybe a couple of minutes mixing until all the flours dissolve through it. But what we do next is we just cover that up with a shower cap or a piece of polythene and leave it to ferment for around about 12 to 18 hours at room temperature. Okay, so our Poolish has been fermenting for 18 hours at room temperature, so we're going to take off the cover, and you can see from the Poolish it's really bubbly and it's at least doubled in size. So this is what we're after, and this maintains flavour and it will give a really, really good crust development in the finished product. How do we get this out of it? It's very, very sticky. So what we want to do is pour a little bit of the water that we've got for the dough into the Poolish, and this will help us release the Poolish out of here. We're going to use a scraper as well to help us with this. So I'm wetting the scraper as well. Scrape round the edge and let the water do its job. You can see how sticky this is, and what we're looking for is to let the Poolish tip out and release from the container. So we're going to tip this into the mixing bowl now. So gently do this. You can see it's releasing out of the bowl really easily, and there's a little bit of water left in there, so we can just scrape it out. If you try and get your hands in this and do the job, it is not going to work, and you're going to have a lot of Poolish on your hands. Whereas if we put the water in, we tend to get the main part of the Poolish out of the bowl. So once we've got the Poolish in there, we're going to add the rest of our ingredients into the Poolish. So we're going to hand mix maybe about 5 or 6 loaves, which can be done easily at home. So we've got some sourdough going in, okay? And then we've got T65 flour, which is a baguette flour with sea salt. So we're going to pour those in and then paddle, hand in and stir. So our fingers are together and we're just incorporating the flour into the Poolish. Just gently fold through the water into the flour and it will come together. This might take around about 5 to 10 minutes. We're looking for the dough to come together a little bit more. You can see we've got a lot of excess water and it's quite lumpy. So as we keep mixing, it will start to soak up. Okay, at this point, I'm going to stick in the yeast as well. What I'm going to do there is stop mixing and leave it to relax for about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to start repeating the same process again. Once we've got all the ingredients bound together, we're going to use a technique called around the clock, which is with the left hand we're going to start rotating the ball around, and with the right hand we're going to pick the dough up, stretch it and place it back into the middle, like so. So we're going all around the points of the clock really, and this starts mixing it and it starts developing the gluten because we're picking it up and stretching it. This is a very, very wet dough. Okay, so it's going to take quite a lot of hand mixing. We might need to do this for about 3 minutes. We're going to leave it for 5 minutes, let it rest and recover, and then repeat around the clock at least 10 times. So, when we've finished around the clock, the dough should demonstrate good signs of strength, but also extensibility. Okay, so we've done our 10th around the clock. We've got a nice dough, and we've bulk fermented it for 30 minutes after the final around the clock. Because it's a wet dough, we need to put some flour on the top. Okay, and then I just need to wet my hands with water, and I turn this tub so it's facing me this way. I'm putting my hands underneath and letting the dough fold on itself, and turn it round the other way and repeat that process. And we can see actually that it was quite extensible before. Now we've got some strength into the dough. So by folding, we bring about a physical change. So we realign all the gluten and make it strong. So with folding, it's important that you put them at certain time intervals. So the pan de campagne has 30-minute folds. So first half an hour has a fold, then another half an hour and put another fold in, and then wait another half an hour and put the final fold in, and leave for 1.5 hours so that it fully bulk ferments. Okay, pan de campagne, after 3 hours of bulk fermenting, we're going to the next stage, which is scaling and shaping. Because it's so wet, I'm going to help myself and put a little bit of flour on there, and then we're going to tip this out onto a work surface. Before I do that, I'm just going to put a little bit more flour down, nice and even. Don't be tempted to spread flour around with the tips of your fingers, because if you do that, the work surface is exposed without any flour on. Okay, so you move the flour away, so it's important to just sprinkle the flour over the work surface. What we're going to do next is over and tip the dough out and let it naturally fall out of the dough tub. Okay, so flour dust the top of the pan de campagne, and then taking the scraper, take this very wet dough, scale at 750. Use your scraper to take the dough away. So the next stage is folding it over to shape the dough piece. So what we're going to do is take one side, so like 3 o'clock, move it to the centre, and 9 o'clock, move it to the centre, take the 6 o'clock piece over into the centre and take the 12 o'clock piece, and then we do the following diamond edges over. So we're almost folding it over, and then scrape it off and let them bench rest. We have enough dough here to make around a dozen pan de campagne loaves. However, we're going to focus on making one today. Okay, so after our bench rest for our pan de campagne, it's relaxed off a little bit, so that means that we can final shape it. We final shape it and put it into a peruvian basket. So this is our peruvian basket, and we need to make sure that the dough doesn't stick, so we need to dust the peruvian basket with flour. We need to do this evenly, and we not only need to get it in the bottom, but also around the edges. A liberal amount of flour, and then we go on to shaping the dough piece. So just put a little bit of flour there, pick this up and turn it over. Okay, and then we're going to repeat this process again, where we actually take the 3 o'clock, fold it into the middle, take the 9 o'clock, the 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and then we take this side here, over, 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 and over. And you can see very quickly we've nearly shaped that loaf without actually doing much to it. The last part of the shaping process is using the gated technique, where we put our fingers together so that they're reinforcing each other. Okay, we're going to put those onto the bench and draw forward and turn 90 degrees and repeat that gated process another 3 times. And we can feel the dough tightening up each time we do this. So when we finish the gating technique, You can see we've got a really strong piece of dough, even though it's very wet, okay? We very quickly take the dough piece and turn it over so that the smooth side is now on the base of the dough, because we now need to final prove this loaf, and when we come to bake the product off, we turn it back over the other way so that the smooth side is on the top when we come to bake it. We'll prove it for about an hour and a half at ambient room temperature, and the remaining hour and a half we'll put it into the refrigerator to prove at 4 degrees. And the reason we're doing that is because it's such a wet dough, by putting it at a lower temperature it actually firms the dough up so that when we tip it out and ready to go into the oven, it's easier to cut and handle. Okay, so we've been proving our Panda Campagne now for at least 3 hours, so it's had the last hour and a half in the refrigerator. And as we can see, it's proved up to the edge of the proving basket and it's firmed up nicely. And what we're going to do is just give a little flour dusting, some semolina, okay, just smooth that off. The reason we're putting the flour and semolina and smoothing it over the bottom of the dough is so that it doesn't stick to the baker's peel. So we're going to tip the dough out. So give it a bang out. So there we have it. We've got the dough piece onto the baker's peel. It should slide around. Before we put it into the oven, we're going to cut the loaf. With a blade, it's important that we've got a fresh blade, so don't use an old blade, otherwise it won't cut the loaf. And we're going to be very confident with the slashing of the loaf. So we're going to present our blade to it and give a good confident slash. Slash again, turn the board round, slash again, turn the board round again, slash again. We're going to put it into the oven, and the important thing is that in the oven we've got a preheated tray. Now the tray is turned upside down, and what this does, it allows the loaf to pass onto the tin very easily. If it's the right way around, we've got a lip to get the product over. So it's really important that we have the tray turned the other way round. It's important that we present the loaf into the oven and give it a slide in, nice and confident slide in. And at this stage, we could throw some water into the preheated tray on the bottom. This mealer oven has a great steam function, which means you don't have to tip the water into the bottom of the preheated tray. The baking time for this is around about 40 minutes at 225 degrees Celsius. Okay, so our Panda Campagne's had time to cool. And there we can see we've got a really sort of nice bold looking loaf. It's risen evenly and we should have a wonderful open waxy porous texture inside. And that's a great example of a Panda Campagne with Poolish.